Whispers of the forest, opening the owl's gentle voice. Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, as the stars twinkle softly above the treetops, a gentle breeze carries the sound of stories. Whispers of the forest, tales passed from tree to tree, leaf to leaf, until they reach your ears. High in an old, wise oak, sits a gentle owl, her feathers soft as snow, her eyes full of memories. Tonight, she reads not from a book of pages, but from a book of time, etched in the bark of trees, and in the hearts of all forest creatures. Now, close your eyes. Let the rhythm of her voice guide you to a place where dreams begin. Story 1: The Squirrel Who Stored the Moonlight. Once, deep in the forest, there lived a squirrel named Lilo. She wasn't the fastest, nor the strongest, but she was curioso, very curious. While other squirrels gathered nuts and raced through trees, Lilo gazed at the moon each night, and whispered, "I wish I could hold that light just once." And then, one autumn evening, the moonlight shimmered so brightly that it spilled into her hollow log. Lilo, breathless with wonder, placed a jar beneath the light, and somehow, it filled. The next day, the jar glowed faintly, like a dream you almost remember. She tried again and again, and soon, Lilo had a small shelf of glowing moon jars. Not for fame, not for glory, but just to remind herself that even small creatures can hold pieces of the sky. And every winter night, Lilo would sit by her jars, their soft glow warming her little paws, as she smiled and whispered, "I've caught the moon." Story 2: The Little Fox Who Chased the Moon. In the quiet valley between two hills, a young fox named Miro lived alone. He loved the night more than day, because at night the moon would rise. Miro believed the moon was not just light in the sky, but a friend. Every evening, he would run along the ridge, his paws dancing on fallen leaves, chasing the moon as it floated across the sky. "Wait for me," he'd whisper, as if the moon could hear. And perhaps it did. One night, when the sky was clear and the stars shy, Miro ran farther than ever before, through forests, over brooks, past sleeping deer and yawning owls. At last, breathless, he reached a hilltop where the moon felt closest. He looked up and said, "I can't reach you, but thank you for running with me." The moon didn't answer, but it shimmered brighter, and from that night on, Miro stopped chasing. He simply walked under its light, smiling, knowing it was always there, above him, beside him. Story 3: The Turtle Who Couldn't Sleep. Not far from the river's bend lived an old turtle named Tulla. Every night, as the forest fell asleep, Tulla stayed awake. She counted stars. She rearranged leaves in her shell. She sipped dewdrops and stared into the dark. "I don't know how to sleep," she said to a firefly. "Then don't sleep," said the firefly. "Just listen." So she listened, to crickets tuning their legs, to distant owls whispering names, to trees sighing in the wind. She didn't know when it happened, but as the forest hummed its lullaby, Tulla finally drifted into the gentlest sleep she'd ever known. Story 4: The Mouse and the Wind. In a hollow near the edge of the woods, a tiny mouse named Pina collected sounds. Not things, not food, just sounds. She stored the rustle of leaves, the chirp of a chick, the splash of frogs, and the hush of snow falling. But her favorite was the wind. One day, a storm swept through the forest, Trees shook, and animals hid. But Pina climbed to the tallest root and shouted, "Come on, wind, let's dance." And the wind did. It spun her gently in the air, wrapping around her like silk. And when the storm passed, the forest was quiet again. But in her little heart, Pina kept the dance. And some nights, when no one watched, she'd twirl through the moss and whisper, "Still here." Story 5: The Tree That Remembered Names. There was once a great tree in the center of the forest. Its branches stretched like arms. Its leaves rustled like lullabies. It was called Nemi, and Nemi had a secret. She remembered every name ever spoken beneath her shade. Foxes who whispered dreams. Deer who hummed lullabies. Children who once passed and giggled. All their names lived in her bark. She whispered them back into the breeze. So gently, no one heard them with their ears, but with their hearts. When someone felt a sudden warmth in the wind, or dreamed of a name they hadn't said in years, that was Nemi, remembering them. And long after voices faded, she whispered still. Story 6: The Bear Who Woke Up Early. In the first snowfall of the year, when all bears were curled into caves, one little bear named Bodo blinked awake. He wasn't sure why. His cave was warm, his belly was full, but his eyes wanted to see the snow. So Bodo waddled out, into the glittering white. The world was silent, not lonely, just still. He didn't go far. He didn't need to. He lay on his back, paws crossed over his tummy, and watched the snow fall from a sky so still, it felt like it held its breath. And before long, snowflakes gathered on his fur. Like tiny dreams, he smiled, and fell asleep again, right there in the snow, blanketed by the hush of winter. Story 7: The Feather That Found Its Way Home. One day, a small white feather was carried by the wind. It didn't know where it came from, or where it was going. It drifted, past rivers, over hills, through clouds. It rested in a fox's den, in a squirrel's tree, on the nose of a snoring wolf. And with each stop, it heard stories, it gathered whispers, it collected silence. Then, one gentle morning, it floated into the oldest tree, the one where the owl read stories each night. The owl looked down and said, "Ah, there you are." She picked up the feather, tucked it into her book, and whispered, "Every wanderer finds their way back. Even feathers." Closing the forest sleeps. Now, dear listener, the owl has finished her stories. Her wings are folded, the forest is still, and even the stars seem to blink more slowly. You've journeyed with foxes and feathers, with turtles and trees, and now it's time for your own story to begin, the one that happens in dreams. So close your eyes, breathe deep, let the gentle hush of the woods carry you. Let sleep wrap around you like moss on stone. The forest is quiet, and you are home.